product life cycle. And we understood that if a company has a lot of products, then we are talking about, if anyone wants to say, just unmute yourself and say, I mean, I'm not really looking at the other screen, and therefore I may miss if you want to say something. So then, as I said, we did the product life cycle, and then we just thought, okay, if a company has a lot of products, then we looked at the product length, depth, width, and so on. However, up till now, what we have understood is the basics of a product, that okay, it has 3 levels. A company may have a lot of products. Every product passes through a product life cycle, which is introduction, growth, maturity, and decline. But if a company has a lot of products, then do we have different strategies for different products? And is there any link to the product life cycle? Yes, and that is what we discussed yesterday when we looked at the question mark, or sorry, the BCG matrix. And when we looked at the BCG matrix, we saw that on 2 parameters, we can look at most of the products, and that is the growth rate and your share. So how much is what is the potential of a product in the near future, and what is the share the company has in the market with that particular product. And based on that, there were 4 kinds of products that we discussed yesterday, and we discussed them with various examples of live companies, where we understood that ideally maybe the best situation is that you only have stars and cash cows, but in reality that doesn't happen, and we may have question marks and dogs also. However, a good company will have a good balance of stars and cash cows. Why? Because stars help you to shine. Stars are the one which help you create a position. Stars are the one which create that name and fame for you. But stars require a lot of hard work. Stars require a lot of investment. And that investment comes from the cash cows, because cash cow products are those which have sort of hit the maturity phase. And therefore, while they have a huge market share, maybe the potential for growth in the near future is limited. And that is why the investment also that we do for these products is limited. So what is happening? The investment is less, but there's a lot of cash available, which we can use to help the stars shine. Question marks? If we can answer the fill in the blank, or if we can find out the problem as to why they don't have the required market share, question marks have a potential to become stars. And obviously, dogs are those products which do not have the potential of any growth in the near future, and even our market share is very less. It's best to let go of dogs. Otherwise, you will keep spending your time and effort, and it's not worth it. Yeah. So this was what we discussed yesterday about the BCG matrix, which still brings me to the next question. I'm still not clear. Okay, as a student, I would look at it. I have been taught about the product, the levels of the product, and the product life cycle, and so on. But hello, how do I develop a product? And therefore, we need to next thing understand is product development. But before we understand product development, you need to understand the importance of being innovative. I'm not really sure if I can teach you innovation theoretically. I'm not really sure if innovation is something that can be taught over a few hours. Innovation is a practice. Innovation is a way of life. Innovation is a thinking. Innovation is an attitude, and you need to develop it. Because forget about business, the only constant in the world is change. And if you don't change, then you become a dinosaur. So for anything, any person, any idea, any service to survive, it is important to acknowledge and accept that change is the only constant thing, and we have to change as per the needs of the customer, as per the environment. And whenever I talk of innovation, this beautiful article by Harvard Business Review, which I have shared with you in Google Classroom, and I just love the way they have tried to explain innovation using the Gandhian model. which is so surprising. So what is the Gandhian model? And I'm not really looking. So it says that there are three steps, which if we look at the Gandhian model for innovation, there are three steps. The first, disrupt business models. Second, modify organizational capabilities. And third, create or source new capabilities. And maybe let me explain this to you with the help of the father of the nation's philosophy, and then go on to business, because we marketing people, we are ready to learn from everywhere. Disrupt business models. So if you've read your history books well, I mean, how did we get freedom? Was it easy for India? No, not at all. And traditionally, how were wars fought? I mean, wars always signified arms and ammunitions and people fighting and a lot of money and so on and so forth. Well, if that was a traditional model, there was no way India could have won the freedom, because the Indian population had no arms and ammunitions. The Indian population had no wealth. Everything had been taken away by the Britishers. Indian population could not have gone to war in the traditional manner, and we would have never got freedom had we thought of getting freedom with the traditional war. And yet we needed a fight, yet we needed to protest, yet we needed to stand up for our rights. And so what did Gandhiji do? He disrupted the business model. He said, who has said that wars and fights and fight for right has to be on the fields with arms and ammunitions, with dead bodies, with money flow, with wastage of money? He said, modify. He said, what is it that we have? So disrupt the business model. What India did not have money. India did not have arms and ammunitions. India did not have the capability to have a traditional war. But what India had was human resource. We were always one of the most populated countries in the world. And even then, population was not a problem with us. We had human resource. What we had were people who were hungry for freedom. What we had were people who loved their country. What we had were people who didn't have money, but they were very, very rich in terms of knowledge. He modified the organizational capabilities. How did he modify the organizational capabilities? He said, if India is an organization, then our capability is our human resource. If India is an organization, then our capability is to use this human resource and their knowledge and their passion for freedom and their hunger for freedom, and not violently, but by ahimsa, by non-violence. A term which was not new. I mean, non-violence was not, ahimsa was not something discovered by Gandhi. This was something which was discovered way back by Lord Buddha, God Buddha. But he reinvented it, and that's why it was an innovation. He made ahimsa or non-violence a term which was respected, which people feared. And therefore, he created new capabilities. And at that point of time, when there was no Facebook or Instagram or internet or so on and so forth, when there were no likes or dislikes, when there was no sharing, he became a legend. At that point of time, people across the world were talking about him and his capabilities, his new model, and our fight for freedom. Well, if I have to link it to the business models, if I have to help you, and this is so true even today, and I have so many examples to tell you, because what I'm very proud of, my country, is our ability to innovate, is our ability to fight under any circumstances and find a solution, because we are not afraid of a change. My first example, Arvind Eye Care. I think I have shared this with you in different under different topic. Again, what did Arvind Eye Care do? Did they disrupt the business model? Yes, they did. Cataract operation is a 10-minute operation. Why do you need a doctor all the time? Look at how they came up with what they call as the assembly line system, which is actually belongs to the manufacturing industry, but they adopted it so that more and more people could have their cataract operation without it being expensive. And what did they do? What capabilities did they build? They built the new capabilities of paramedics. And wow, the Arvind Eye Care today has the maximum number of eye operations in the world. It's a huge achievement, not just for the organization, but for the country. Again, when I'm talking about innovation, Mumbai Dabbawalas, they reinvented the whole process. And and most of the people that work for the Mumbai Dabbawalas, they have not even completed their school education, and yet their process is so foolproof that there are hardly any faults which ever happen, and that's why they have been awarded Six Sigma. Again, what did they do? Disrupted the business model. They were not afraid to look at a change. They developed new capabilities, and that's how they conquered the market in Mumbai. When I'm talking about innovation, again, so let me also show you the websites of these companies. The first, 1 minute, I'm so sorry. Yeah, so look at Arvind Eye Care. When you look at Arvind Eye Care and I go to their services, look at what they're doing so many. Teleophthalmology, but let me click on outreach. And when I click on outreach, look at how they have reached out to maximum number of people through their eye camps. They disrupted the business model. Who says that a hospital has to be a brick and mortar? In fact, a brick and mortar is so expensive. And if you have to reach out to the maximum number of people in my country, people who are below a certain socioeconomic section, you need to innovate. And they have camps for diabetic retinopathy, they have comprehensive eye camps, they have school children screening camps, they have pediatric eye screening camps, and so on. So what happens? Only serious patients come to the hospital. What a wonderful way to maximize the service and yet at the same time not compromise on the quality. What better way to innovate? Look at Mumbai Dabbawalas. Again, when I'm talking about Mumbai Dabbawalas, when they are talking about today, look at where they have reached. They are talking about lectures, seminars, TED Talks. They have a digital Dabbawala. They have centralized kitchens. And look at the amount of work that they are doing. 200,000 plus dabba delivery per day, and no wrong dabba reaches to anyone. And obviously ITC e-Chopal, again a beautiful example, and again an innovation which has transformed lives and landscapes of. And it's, look at this, it says we will discuss ITC e-Chopal when we do distribution, but they also again innovated the whole process. Why does a farmer have to go through an agent to sell his product? Why can't a farmer sell the product directly? And more important, why shouldn't the farmer know what are the rates in the mandi? Why shouldn't the farmer be educated about how to have a better yield and so on? I mean, I can just go on and on about innovations that my country has witnessed, and it's just amazing. Obviously, HUL's Shakti Amma is another. Who said that a retailer has to be a brick and mortar store? Why can't a retailer be a walking, talking person? And that's how they discovered Shakti Amma. And again, an innovation that changed not just for the company, but for the Shakti Ammas and also for the consumer who could get access to the right products. Well, when I'm talking about innovation, there are so many different definitions of innovation. If you just go on Google and type innovation, you will get so many definitions of innovation. But for me, the simplest definition is innovation is anything new that helps change the lives positively. It's as simple as that. When we are talking about business, innovation can have different definitions. Innovation can be looked at differently. And therefore, innovation can be something when the product is new to the company. Okay, now what do I mean by new to the company? So for example, Bajaj Auto, when they started making bikes, the bike was new to the company. The bike was not new. The world knew about bike. India knew about bike. However, Bajaj Auto for the first time had started manufacturing bikes way back in late 1990s or 2000, and therefore it was a new product to the company. Innovation can also be described from the product-oriented definition. And what do I mean by that? So a product can be a discontinuous product. Now, what is a discontinuous product? Something which no one had ever seen before. So for example, internet. When internet was launched, then this was something which didn't exist before. If I have to explain it in some other manner, then what is discontinuous innovation? When phone was invented, so way back in whichever 1800s or what 1900s, when phone was invented, this was a discontinuous innovation. Nobody had ever seen anything like this before. I mean, the very fact that sitting in one part of the world, you could speak to someone else was amazing. So phone was a discontinuous innovation. However, when excuse me, when a cordless phone was invented, that was a continuous innovation. Why? Because we knew what the phone was. I mean, we had landlines in our home and it was a fixed landline. This was a continuous innovation, but because now I could take the phone in my hand and walk and talk from any room in the house. I didn't have to stand in front of this particular phone to talk to someone. I could now roam around in my house. I could be in the different rooms and yet talk to someone. So it was a continuous innovation because we knew about it and it was an improvement over this. What is dynamically continuous innovation? Well, dynamically continuous innovation was when mobile phone was innovated. Why? Because this was still a phone. We still knew what a phone was. We still knew that phone helps us to connect to people. However, it was a very dynamic innovation because now I was not just confined to my house. I could stand on the road and talk to someone in any part of the world. I could be in a shop. I could be in my car. I was not confined to the four walls of the house or the office anymore. Okay, so innovation can be from a product point of view. It can be discontinuous, continuous, or dynamically continuous. While innovation can also be described from a market-oriented definition. Now, what does that mean? So, for example, when color TVs were introduced in India in 1980s, then color TVs were most probably existed in other part of the world, but for the Indian market, we only came to we only got access to them in early 1980s. But at the end of the day, from a marketing point of view, innovation is one which the consumer thinks is new. If your consumer does not think that you have innovated, then you have not innovated. Because at the end of the day, the consumer should feel that he or she is buying a latest product. And therefore, while you may have innovation from firm point of view, from market point of view, from a product point of view, but at the end of the day, extremely important that you should have it from also the consumer point of view. At this point of time, maybe let me come back to you and understand if you have any questions. Am I making sense of what we are talking today? If you have any questions, queries, please shoot before I continue. Any concerns or any contribution? I love the silence, which either means that you're a genius and you've all understood, or it just means that you haven't understood anything. In either way, sorry.
Understood.
Thanks.
Yes, ma'am, understood.
Thanks for helping me know that you people can speak. Okay, so we continue with the class, and let me again share my screen with you. Yeah. So as I said, so I mean, therefore it is important for us to understand first of all what innovation is. And as I said, maybe innovation is not something that can be taught theoretically. Innovation is an attitude. Innovation is a passion. Innovation is the ability to accept changes. Innovation is the ability to accept changes with a smile on your face and not crib about it. Because in business, you need to change very frequently because the needs of the consumer are changing so frequently and you need to be updated. Well, that brings me, is there a process for product development? Theoretically, yes, there is a process for product development. And it says that it has 6, 7 steps. What are the steps? The first one, it says it's important to have an idea. Of course, it's very important to have an idea because unless and until you have an idea, you cannot do any product development. However, just having an idea is never, never enough because we all have ideas. I mean, that's one thing which we have in plenty. Stop any person anytime and say, sir, do you have an idea? And we all have ideas all the time. But an idea is not good enough if it can't be implemented. An idea is not good enough if it cannot complete the process, the journey of till the end. And therefore, the next step is from that idea, you need to do the idea screening. What does it mean? Don't be afraid to say that, yes, this idea will not work. You need to really brainstorm over ideas and be okay to reject ideas. Don't get obsessed with your idea. That's where we face problems, when we get obsessed with our ideas. No, I think this will work. I think has absolutely no value. The market should be able to tell you, the market research should give you an indication that this will or this will not work. And therefore, you may have 100 ideas, but after idea screening, if you just are left with 2 or 3 ideas, it's okay. I mean, that's fine because you need to be ruthless in looking at an idea. Once the idea screening is done, and look at this, look at the left side, what's happening. The amount of investment is going up as we are going further with the steps. So there is no investment with just an idea. There is no investment actually when we are doing that idea screening. Now, concept development and testing. What is concept development and testing? Concept development and testing is when you have done your idea screening, then you think about, okay, so we did it in the class one of the days when I shared with you a powder which you can mix in milk. So it was a concept. It's a powder which you can mix in milk. And then we all thought about, okay, so should we make it for senior citizens, or should we make it for children, or should we make it for working women? We had to develop a concept because I had an idea. The idea was that it's a powder which I can mix in milk, but now develop a concept. This powder is for whom, right? Once we were clear about, okay, maybe I want to target working women, or maybe I want to target kids, you need to have a marketing strategy. Now you are thinking about, okay, so how will I develop the product? What would be my promotion strategy? What would be my pricing strategy? How will we distribute? Are you seeing we are still discussing? I mean, in the sense, we have still not taken any concrete action. We are still doing a lot of market research. We are still brainstorming. And that's exactly what business is all about. Business is a calculated risk. but you only take a calculated risk when you do some calculations. It's not just you wake up in the morning and say, okay, I'm going to make this powder. It's for the kids. Come on, now I want mama money. So bank give me money, papa give me money, mama give me money. No, it's a lot of research which goes on before we take the final step. Once you have your marketing strategy ready, it's then that we go ahead with our business analysis. Now we are talking about money. Now we are talking about approaching the banks for loans. So now we are talking about investments. Now we are talking about how much to invest, where to invest, and so on. But look at this. By the time we hit the step of business analysis, we have crossed 4 stages, which means that we are taking a calculated risk, which means that we have done a lot of homework, which means we have a lot of facts and figures in front of us. And then we are going ahead and taking a decision. You develop the product then. You do the test marketing. Again, even after developing the product, we don't just go into the market. No, we do test marketing. What is test marketing? Test marketing is when you take a smaller market which represents your actual market and test your product. We are still limiting our risk, so that in test marketing, if we find out any problem, if we find out any queries or questions or whatever, we can fill in those gaps. We can fill in those gaps so that finally, when we launch our product, which is commercialization, hopefully we have closed all the gaps. We know what we are doing, and we increase the probability of our success. And therefore, product development does not happen overnight. Product development is a long process which requires a lot of homework, a lot of research, a lot of studies, so that by the time you hit the stage of business analysis or product development, you are well versed with what you are doing. If somebody is typing anything in the chat, just unmute yourself and talk. I can't see that screen. But this is how we look at product development. At this point of time, let me come back to you and understand if, again, I mean, whatever we have done, have you understood what we have been talking about? We started, yes, sorry, somebody was speaking. Today we started with the BCG matrix, just a revision of the BCG matrix. We tried to understand what is innovation, because we need to develop our product, and therefore we need to understand what is innovation. When we tried to understand innovation, then we went ahead and we looked at the various stages of product development. This is what we have done today. And what we'll do in the next classes, okay, if you have understood, please let me know. I mean, if you've understood or if you have any query, please let me know.
Yes, understood.
Thank you. However, as a student, my next question would still be that even if I have been able to innovate, even if I have been able to develop a new product, how do I ensure that this product reaches my target consumer, which means that the diffusion of innovation takes place? Because a product is used, I haven't developed a product to keep it in my almirah or in my house. I have developed it so that it reaches my target consumers, and which is called diffusion of innovation. How do I ensure that it reaches to everyone? And that's what we'll do in the next class. We assume that we know what is innovation. We assume that we know product development. We will assume that we have a product developed with us. Tomorrow, sorry, next class, whichever day, maybe Monday, we will now discuss the diffusion of innovation, that is diffusion of this product to the masses. With that, I will end this topic.